want something good, but if it's really good, you're gonna need a bigger room.
Well, hello, it's Dexter and me back on your screens again, so it must be Saturday night, Sunday morning, whatever. A gloriously lovely day today, but I'm not outdoors, I'm indoors filming this video for you. The sacrifices I make, I don't know. Anyway, today's video is going to be about my Fujifilm GFX50R, which I've had now for nearly 2 months. It came at the end of the first week in December, but I didn't get much of a chance to use it until the new year. And I've been using it now quite extensively for the last few weeks. And all I can say is, in terms of picture quality, wow. This really is the ultimate, I think, in landscape photography cameras. For me, this is producing absolutely stunning images. After importing them into Lightroom or whatever, there's not really any need to do much to them. The dynamic range of the sensor is astronomical. The noise levels are so low. The colours it produces, the contrast it produces, it's fantastic. It's completely revolutionised the way I edit pictures. I hardly touch them. But that's not to say that the camera is not without its faults, unfortunately. Now, most of these, I imagine, are going to be teething problems. Some of them may even be my fault, I don't know. But there are a few things that are annoying me about the camera. My main bugbear with it is the lack of a dedicated ISO dial on the camera. I didn't think this would bother me, but it does. I set the rear command dial to choose ISO, but that's proved problematic. Now, on my Fujifilm X-T20, I've set the rear command dial to be the ISO dial. And what you do is you press the rear command dial in, and then you can choose your ISO level. And then you press it again to get out of that menu. But what I found with this camera is, yes, you press it to get into the list of ISO values you can choose from, but annoyingly, you don't have to press the button to make an ISO selection. Just turning the knob on the back of the camera will change the ISO. No great shakes, you might think, but on a couple of occasions I have changed my ISO when I didn't want to. I've obviously bumped the rear command dial and changed the ISO level. Hopefully that's something that Fujifilm can fix in a firmware update, because if it mimics the functionality of the X-T20, then there'd be no problem with it. That's all I want to be able to do is press that rear command dial in, change my ISO and press it again. Secondly, I really miss not having a D-pad on the back of the camera. Now what I have done is set the camera's touchscreen to mimic the functionality of the D-pad on my X-T2. But what I've been finding recently is that the screen sometimes isn't particularly responsive. I can try 4 or 5 times to swipe to get, say, my histogram up to check that before taking an image, and it won't do it. But then on the 5th or 6th time, it will bring up the histogram. I'm not doing anything different to what I would do on my other cameras or my smartphone, so I don't really understand that. Hopefully I haven't got a faulty screen, but if anybody else is using one of these cameras and can confirm any problems with the touchscreen, I would be really grateful. Now, this camera isn't quick. I knew that when I bought it, but sometimes it is still frustratingly slow. Focus occasionally will not lock onto a subject. Even when you've got perfect light and perfect contrast, it won't lock on. Reviewing images is sometimes really slow. Now, I guess that's down to the huge file size. But what I've found is, if I'm shooting bracketed, say 3 or 5 images bracketed, I'm having to wait 10 to 15 seconds to bring up the ability to review those images on the back screen or through the viewfinder. Now, coming from the lightning fast X-T2, this is a little bit of an annoyance, but then again, I knew when I bought the camera that it's not a lightning fast camera. It's a camera that slows you down and makes you think. But the focusing issue isn't a massive one for me, because I tend to manually focus most of the time anyway. but it's a bit of a bugbear. One other thing with the lens this time and not the camera is that there's no hard stop for infinity on it. I guess this is because it's a zoom lens and they can't put a hard stop on, but it would have been nice to have had something like that. One last thing with the camera, and possibly a firmware bug, is that I can't get the simultaneous delete function to work across the two memory cards. I've set it up so that if you delete an image on memory card 1 or in slot 1, it'll delete it in slot 2, but I can't get that to work. Even though it gives me a warning saying that simultaneous delete is activated, it doesn't do it. And lastly, and this is my fault, not the camera's, I can't get used to the on-off switch at all. I'm so used to having a power switch integrated into the shutter release. I'd still try and turn the camera on and off with that. Anyway, despite all these little foibles, faults or problems, the camera's images are absolutely superb, as I said at the start of this video. You don't buy this camera for shooting wildlife or sports or street photography, where speed is of the essence. You buy this camera for its image quality, for that medium format sensor and the images that the camera and its lenses produce. I don't think it can be faulted. Yes, ergonomics wise it could be a little bit better with the addition of perhaps a D-pad and a dedicated ISO dial, and perhaps if they bring out a version 2 of this camera, those things might be on it. Other little things might be able to be fixed in firmware, I don't know. But for me, I am extremely happy with the camera. Comments on my videos are always appreciated, especially the nice ones, obviously. But no, as usual, thanks everybody for watching. I hope you find this in some way useful as usual, and Dexter and I will see you again next week. Bye bye.
His note said if living is the problem, well, that's just baffling.